So welcome to this Talking Together event, one in a series that hopefully you've been following along. I'm Tom Hughes from the Notts and Derby IMechE Young Members panel, and I'm joined here today with Frida, who's the founder and CEO of Educator Global, and Anesu and Tendai from the Acpn. So this year, IMechE, in collaboration with RES and IET, producing a range of these mental health and wellbeing videos that really focus on this universal issue. And I think this year, this has just been really pertinent to us all. So we've really been addressing three key themes, which are dealing with disappointment, dealing with uncertainty, and dealing with loneliness. And throughout the series, we've interviewed a range of engineers and industry leaders. And today, hopefully, we'll get the perspective of some early career engineers and people working in the engineering industry. So yeah, we just look forward to getting your perspectives on mental health and well-being and what you think we can do to, as early stage engineers, support each other and support ourselves. Frida, do you want to start with a bit of introduction about yourself and an educator?
Yes.
That would be really good.
Yeah, so I'm Frida Nzaba. I'm a manufacturing engineer at Rolls-Royce, currently working in engine overhaul services. So I've been at Rolls-Royce since 2013, started off as an apprentice. So in terms of Educator Global, this is a non-profit social enterprise that I founded with two other engineers in 2019. So it exists to establish, nurture, and enhance STEM, which is experienced by diverse individuals. So the whole point of this is to bridge a gap between education and industry. So far, we've had a pilot event in 2019, which was amazing. We had it in Kenya because at the moment we're operating in the UK and in Kenya. So that was really good. It was between ages 14 to 19, secondary school age students. So that was really interesting. But in 2021, we've got amazing things coming up. We're launching our mentoring program. We've got an event, hopefully, fingers crossed, coming up in Kenya in July, pending COVID restrictions. And then we've got challenge-based learning as well. So working with universities and industry as well. And last year, we did an amazing thing called the life cycle of role models. So this is how I found out about what the IMechE is doing with Josh. So it was really good. That was more of a webinar and an online, but we'll cover that in the global pandemic and how it's affected educator anyway. So yeah.
That's good. And Tendai, what about yourself? What's your background and what are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm an engineer like Frida. So my name is Tendai Kachale. I joined Rolls-Royce in September of 2018 on the graduate program. And currently I'm working as a stress engineer in turbines. So probably started that around as a permanent role since September of last year. And yeah, like Anesu, I'm also in the Acpn, but seeing as she's the Acpn secretary, I'll let her do the intro to Acpn. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Good segue. So yeah, Anesu, a little bit about Acpn and also yourself.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm Anesu Chivenga and not an engineer. So I'm a project management degree apprentice, currently my third year of a 4-year scheme. So I've got one more year to go. So I'm also the secretary and the comms lead for the Acpn. So the Acpn is the African Caribbean Pioneers Network, which works to, which is a resource group within Rolls-Royce, which celebrates and embraces African and Caribbean heritage throughout Rolls-Royce and works to develop and progress a more diverse and inclusive workplace.
Brilliant. Cool. So we've got a nice mix of engineers, project managers, and people doing really cool things in STEM, which is one of my passions, ambitions as well. So we've got a load of questions that have been sent in from our IMechE and RES and IET members. And we've asked them to everyone, and we've adapted them slightly depending on who we're interviewing. So if it's all right, we'll get underway with those. So I think 2020 was a pretty turbulent year for everyone, and so far 2021 maybe isn't shaping up to be a huge amount better. Although hopefully good things are on the horizon. How would you describe your mental health at the moment? How are you guys doing, and what are you doing to look after yourself? Frida, you mentioned briefly about the impact that this has had on educator. How's that impacted you personally, and have you got any ways of dealing with that at the moment?
I think, yeah, last year, so like I mentioned, we had so many things planned and everything with educators more face to face because that's where the impact is. So having to reshuffle everything to online, we just thought of the webinar series and that lasted 6 months. So it was a really, really long one. And we hosted it with Philippa, who's a part of the IMechE as well. It was really intense because again, no one knew, I didn't know how to use Zoom, Microsoft Teams, what platforms do you use it on? So having to make that decision, again, having to pay for Zoom, because again, you don't want the free version, which ends after 40 minutes. So in terms of mental health, that was mostly managing the team. I struggled managing the team because we've got 4 people in Kenya and then we've got 2 people in the UK. So being able to reach them, because everybody's so busy with now online, they've had to move with online meetings, etc. That was a very big challenge on our behalf. And in terms of looking after mental health, for me, it's mainly just learning how to rest. So I work shift work. So after my shift work, I kind of do Educator Global. So I've just learned to say, okay, I'm going to have a chill day and not feel guilty about it. So I've been resting, sleeping, probably too much sleeping. But yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Tendai, how about you? Being on the grad scheme, you know, you move into new teams and get given new projects, and then you move around quite a bit. And I've also started a new role virtually, so I can definitely empathise with how that's been. So how's it been for you?
Yeah, definitely challenging. Being a young engineer, I think at the beginning of your career, you're learning a lot of things. So being in the office definitely helps with collaboration, learning from people when you're stuck with something, and just being able to rock your chair behind and just ask one of your colleagues or your teammates about something. Not having that from a professional point of view is really challenging. Obviously, things take a bit longer. On a personal point, I think at the beginning of lockdown, I definitely did struggle with the invasion of work into my personal space, i.e. my home. I associate home with being somewhere where I rest and almost disconnect from work. So the first couple of weeks for me definitely was a challenge, trying to motivate myself and get up at the same time and have a routine and clock into work in my living room when you've got the TV there. And it's a space you associate with relaxing. But I think the way I kind of overcame that was just sort of understanding that, okay, we're obviously in a global pandemic. And everyone says this is the new normal, but almost recalibrating my brain to what the new situation was. And I found to sort of unwind, again, exercise intermittently on and off, and just unwinding. So for example, at the end of the week, switching my laptop off, putting it away where I physically can't see it, putting all my workbooks away. So it almost creates that barrier between the week and the weekend. That's sort of the ways I've been able to sort of disconnect from work as well.
I think that's really good advice, and that's hiding the laptop on Friday evening is something I've definitely adopted as well. And just lucky enough to be able to segment kind of fun space and workspace has been quite useful. How about you, Anesu? I guess in project management land, there's been a whole lot of planning assumptions that haven't gone well. A lot of replanning, rephasing, re-resourcing. Probably makes joining the company a pretty stressful and interesting time to get on board.
Yeah, definitely. So unfortunately, I went on furlough for a while and came back to a new world. Everyone working online, no longer going into the office. And I was like, what is this? First week, I was like, this is great. I can wake up at 7:30 and make my 8 a.m. meeting. Like, I no longer have to commute and all of that. But it brings along its own challenges. So trying to communicate, there's a new way of communication, getting things done. It's different to being in the office where you can just walk up to someone and say, oh, let's grab a coffee and actually do a plan. But here you kind of have to set time and almost getting that balance between work and life. Like I can completely relate with what Tendai was saying. I found it really hard to switch off because going home to me, that driving back home was like my time to forget about work, get into my mindset of just chilling and doing nothing. But yeah, so it's quite hard, and exercising has been really important for me. So I keep trying to motivate Tendai to go out for a run. He still hasn't gone out for a run. Like this is a weekly thing. But yeah, so getting out and going for a run every morning or during lunchtime really helps to get that mental state and just take a break from work. Because if you're not careful, it ends up consuming so much more of your time working from home than being in the office.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I'm a cyclist, and I really appreciated being able to get out. And I think the really not great weather recently has made it a little bit trickier, and you really appreciate it when you can. So
Yeah.
it kind of segues into one of our other questions, which what's your favourite hobbies to wind down and step away? And you've covered off running. What about you other guys? Avoiding running, it seems, Tendai is one of
Yes.
your
Yeah.
Every week.
So as Anesu baited me out, I'm not a fan of running. So during the summer, I actually started cycling, bought a road bike, cycled a bit during when the weather was nice. It got cold. I'm not a fan of the cold either. So obviously that bike was parked up. So to overcome that, I bought an indoor bike. So now I'm cycling indoors, technically still cycling. So at the moment, that's how I'm getting my exercise, cycling, some dumbbells. Another way that I sort of like to disconnect is I'm a huge fan of cooking. I like cooking. For me, it gives me a lot of sense of control, starting with just the raw ingredients, and shaping up a meal. So that's one way I've almost reclaimed control of the life where we've lost a lot of control in 2020 and 2021. So I like cooking. Aside from that, just really reading, going for some fresh air. I think that's really important. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of walking again. We're probably picking up a trend here, but I do make an effort to go outside and smell the roses and get some fresh air. So yeah, that's how I try and stay sane.
Sounds good. Frida, it sounds like with shift work and Educated Global, maybe you don't have any time to relax, but if you do, what's your chosen go-to?
So I think I picked up this habit during last year's lockdown, sorry. So I like baking, which is very strange, somebody that doesn't like cooking or liking baking. It's because I was that person who's going into the supermarket, getting the self-raising flour, the plain flour, and not stacking them. Maybe I had two or three, the back. And I learned how to bake literally chocolate cake, Victorian sponge cake, and carrot cake. That's my favorite one. So I've been everyone's birthday, all the family members' birthday coming up. I'm always baking a carrot cake. If they can't eat it because they're far away, I eat it for them. So that's my new recipe. That's my new hobby. And again, watching movies, like loads of movies, as sad as that sounds, that kind of relaxes my brain, not thinking about anything to do with ECG. Because I think for me, physically going into work, doing shifts, that's work for me. And then coming home to educator, that's work. So unwinding in a different way is just not thinking about anything but what I'm watching. And then catching up with friends on FaceTime, Zoom, making that effort to talk to people that you would never talk to as often, really.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, and I guess it's one of the blessings we have had is that we do have this technology to connect us, and
exactly.
And maybe if we were in this situation 10 years ago, then I think that would have been very much worse. And I live alone, and for me that's a huge bonus. I think I'd be really struggling without that. But sounds like I'm definitely going to be coming around yours when this is over. Between Tendai and yourself, I think there'll be plenty of good eats. So I'm looking forward to that invite, please.
Can we get Frida to circulate some baking recipes?
Yeah, definitely sounds really good. So I think that's been really useful, and hopefully there's some good tips there for how people can try and find some coping mechanism. I think one of the really unfortunate things that's happened this year is it's been quite a lot of uncertainty and quite a lot of disappointment. I know a few people who maybe had some placements lined up and had grad placements lined up, and because of the way things have panned out, those haven't manifested. Sorry, excuse me. Have you guys really encountered any sort of disappointments recently? And have you got any advice for people in the situation on how maybe they can deal with this and manage it?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I guess I'll go first. In terms of disappointments, I guess for me, if I look over the last couple of months, I guess as I was saying earlier on, sort of being new in your career, trying to learn new things. So for me personally, part of my day job has included picking up a new piece of software, which very few people at work actually know how to use. So trying to learn how to use that at home in my living room has been really challenging. Of course, my team is there to support me, but it's not the same as being in the office, having someone just a desk away to ask them. That for me, you know, working on something that maybe should have taken 1 or 2 months, ending up taking, say, 3 or 4 months, just because of the steep learning curve and the distance with your colleagues. And for me, you know, having to delay work just because it hasn't been completed, the thing that's just kept me going is just telling myself there's a lesson in all of this, i.e. whether it's the fact that you're having to have such a steep learning curve, which you will benefit from in the future, and not giving up. It sounds really, really trivial to say, just don't give up, but there's always, you know, light at the end of the tunnel. So I didn't give up, and I managed to actually crack the code per se. And so the advice I would give people is definitely don't give up, keep going. Things definitely will get better. Yeah.
Frida, it sounded like from what you said earlier, you had to sort of rethink some of the events you had lined up. Anything particularly stand out from there that was a big disappointment, and how did you recover from that?
I think, like I mentioned, the big disappointment was only being able to accomplish one thing in 2020, which was the webinar series. So everything else we've kind of had to shift to 2021, which means that, which is good because it gave us planning room and headspace. But as you know, a lot of people thought, oh, 2020, we've got a whole year to kind of, you know, from March to December, it's far away. And then now we're in February 2021 and you're still, you know, I think my team's mentality is still kind of, you know, a few months behind, and we're like, we've had a year, guys, we've had a year. So being able to openly challenge the team and knowing that they're volunteers, which is understandable. So, you know, it's not like they're working permanently that you can whip them or anything. So that's been a challenging, managing the team and managing the expectations for 2021, sorry.
Yeah, I think we've seen that with IMechE as well. We do a lot of hands-on STEM events and outreach events and soft skills and training, and we're trying to pivot that into the virtual space and realign what our expectations are. But yeah, it does sometimes feel like maybe less of an achievement. I think it's important to step back with perspective and understand what you have accomplished in what have been really quite challenging circumstances. So
and
that
just to
reflection is
mention,
really valuable.
For those grads that you know, have lost their placements or lost their positions, I think this is the time that they should actually join these non-profit social enterprises and charities, support them, because most of them maybe are struggling moving from physical presence to an online presence, and most of the grads are very techie, very good at Excel, very good at you know, virtual stuff. So if they can use their skills to support somebody in the interim while they're looking for jobs, and that can also enhance their CV. So it's a type of different skill that they're using, and it's something that good that they're contributing towards the community. So rather than just sitting at home waiting for, you know, that job to come, go out there, find the volunteering positions as you find the permanent job.
I think, yeah, that's really true, and I've had that experience where I've generally had very technical, very analytical roles, and in those roles it's sometimes quite hard to grow some of the more soft skills and the people management and that side of developing your career. And these volunteering opportunities give you the opportunity to develop those skills in addition to your day job, and that really helps when you're looking to move role or to move up in your career. So yeah, I definitely encourage people. We'll put some links to Educator Global in this, and definitely get involved if that's something that appeals. But there's a lot of social enterprise and STEM outreach out there that give these opportunities. What about you, Anesu? Again, early career, maybe when you were applying for this, you had a vision in your head of how the first few years in Rolls-Royce would play out.
Yeah.
How's that looking against how it did?
That's a hard question. So anyone who knows me, I'm a project manager, I have a spreadsheet for everything, literally everything. And of course, the start of 2020, I had a spreadsheet of how this whole year was going to turn out. I knew everything that I was going to do by a monthly basis. And I like a plan. I like to stick to a plan. So when everything changed and I felt like I lost control of a lot of things, that was quite hard. But I just, at the end of the year, I looked back at everything that I'd been able to achieve and said, okay, I can't be so hard on myself. There's still loads that I've done. And especially to Frida's point about volunteering. So when I was on furlough, I volunteered for Emergent Alliance. which was an organization that looked at the effects of COVID on different businesses. So you've got Rolls-Royce, IBM, different companies such as that. And it was just something I picked up and absolutely loved. So if you've been in that position where that job that you'd got is no longer there and stuff like that, definitely volunteer, because there is no such thing as wasted time when you're doing something. I could have wasted my whole time on furlough just doing absolutely nothing, which was true for a few weeks, but I gained so much by volunteering, gained so much knowledge of different companies, how different cultures work, because this was worldwide. It wasn't just in the UK. So early mornings, because I had a team out in India and Florida, so really early mornings, but it gave me a different perspective of just how the world worked. And if the pandemic had never happened, I would have just stuck to my amazing 4-year plan of my apprenticeship at Rolls-Royce and never would have got that experience out there. So definitely spend time looking at what more you can do, what you can get involved in, and everything you get involved in, there's a lesson to be learned there.
I think that's really great advice. Brilliant. Have you guys had second thoughts? I think I'm maybe a little bit further down my career than you guys, and occasionally I've had second thoughts about whether engineering is the place for me, and whether this is the industry I want to be in. And I guess I've kind of looked around and realized that the impact what we do can have on people's lives, and that sort of reaffirmed it. But have you guys had second thoughts about whether engineering is the career path for you?
Who wants to go first?
I don't mind going first on this one, because so I'm currently a project management apprentice, but I actually started off in engineering. So I actually did 2 years of engineering before I decided to leave and go into project management. So I guess for me, this is, have I had second thoughts of not staying in engineering? And I think the impacts I see within the business, within all my other friends who are engineers, that you change people's lives. It's honestly a great career to have. I'm not an engineer, but I can definitely admire the work that engineers do and the passion that they have for it. It's amazing. But so maybe I do have second thoughts. I don't know.
Maybe we can convert you and bring you back from PM.
Yeah.
But I think it highlights how the skills are really transferable, though. That analytical mindset and numeracy and everything. It is. I did spend some time as a finance analyst, and that broad skill sets is really useful. So you guys are stuck with the faith, and it's for you.
I think for me it would be I've thought about technology, because I've literally thought, okay, I've been an engineer for nearly now 8 years. I've never actually thought about learning programming, learning a different skill that's related to tech, or reading up about industry 4.0. So I think over this period where we've had loads of time to reflect and think about your career, I think that's one of the skills that I need to improve on. And I think that it's really needed for the coming future, being able to understand how you can merge the engineering brain with the tech brain, because that just makes a great innovation brain in my eyes. So reading up on stuff like that and the latest trends, it's not really a career change, but it's more of enhancing, like building that next step. So engineering as a foundation, and then having that techie brain as the next one. And plus, it's good because we can maybe work from home, because right now I'm going into work. If I was a techie person, I'll just be in my room working from home.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of similar to Frida. So fortunately, I do enjoy my job quite a lot. Maybe a bit geeky in that respect, but I think lockdown has kind of shown me how quickly things can change, and how rapidly we need to adapt. So for me, it's also sort of having the fundamental engineering skills, but also looking at things like programming and big data, and trying to merge the two, because I think they are important parts of the future and the future in engineering. So it's almost been expanding my mindset and my thought about what actually is engineering, and trying to pick up new skills. Yeah.
I think that future-proofing, both personally future-proofing your career, but also being able to use those skills to push the industry forward is where, as early career engineers, we can really make a difference and bring some fresh thinking. So that's all really good to hear. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we've got a few key themes that we're trying to address, and one of them is around loneliness as well. And loneliness, I think, it sounds a bit trite, but you don't have to be alone to feel loneliness. Although lockdown has clearly exacerbated that for a huge number of people. And then speaking with people I know, I think maybe guys from minority and more non-traditional backgrounds maybe are even more prone to this. So is this something you guys have experienced, and have you got any real advice for how to counter it? I mean, I know people who've been involved with Acpn, and that looks like a really good network to meet people who you can kind of share your experience with and glean knowledge from, but for maybe people in organizations who don't have that framework, have you got any advice for how people can maybe combat loneliness at all? Is it something you feel you guys have, joining a new team or moving around? It's definitely, as I've moved around different companies and joined and left mates behind, and you're in a project, you're in a team for 6 months, and you historically went down the pub and had a good bond, and then you get uprooted and put into a new team, and that all starts again. And it does get easier, I think, but particularly early career, maybe you feel nervous to interact, or you're joining an established team and dropping in, and I think that's really difficult. So yeah,
definitely. So I felt that as well when I first joined my my current team, and I guess on the grad scheme you're always jumping in between new teams or starting a new role, as you were saying. But I do remember joining my current team. Everyone knows everyone. There's already banter. There's a structure in place. We go for coffee at 10 o'clock, and you're the new guy. You're trying to learn everyone's name. You're trying to pick up the work. And I think the advice I would give to overcome loneliness is just reach out. So be open-minded and just reach out. Step out of your comfort zone. Join your colleagues or whoever it is for a coffee break when they go for their break. I think people would be surprised how much people are willing to support and talk and get to know you. So yeah, I think the simple advice I would give is reach out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Tendai on that, and also be open. If you are feeling lonely or anything like that, there's nothing wrong with saying it, because some people might not even realize that you're in that situation, and they're like, oh, it's fine. Like you were saying, Tom, that you live alone. I live alone, and I spent the first 2 lockdowns completely by myself. And I was like, I just need to call someone during lunch, or started having lunch with friends, like on Teams and stuff like that. So still have that community, although we're working from home. Quiz nights, a lot of quiz nights. But yeah, reach out and be open. And you're not the only one. This is new for everyone. Like, there's someone who's in the same position, someone who's managed to get out of that position, who can tell you what they did and stuff like that. So be open and talk to everyone.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. That's really good advice.
I think for me, I would also say for new starters, I remember joining Rolls-Royce where Acpn, I think, wasn't established yet. There wasn't that many ERGs yet. So I remember feeling lonely, definitely, coming from Nottingham, where it's a diverse, it's a diverse community. You've got, I went to a diverse school, so many different types of people. And then going into Rolls-Royce, where I was the only Black female engineer in that cohort between the grads and the apprentices. And also being able to, it's like imposter syndrome. You're like, oh, do I fit in here? And then you start judging others based on what you think they're thinking, but really they're not. So you end up feeling lonely based on your own judgments. And I just thought, oh my God, nobody likes Afro beats because it's a particular genre. In my head, I was like, how am I gonna, mend with people if they don't like my sort of genre? They're talking about something completely different, like rock or something, and I'm into Afro beats. And I just thought, and then there was one girl I remember in my apprenticeship year. She was like, oh my God, I love Afro beats. I love Vibes Cartel, if everyone knows. Different types of music. And I was like, whoa, I had that prejudgment, and that made me feel lonely. But being able to connect with that individual. So like Tendai was saying in Anesu, being able to just approach people and be yourself as well. Because I was very open that, you know, I'm not going to change and mold myself into somebody else. And I think that's how I found connections with that individual group of girls that I used to hang out with. So how to overcome it is just remove those thoughts from your head, and just approach them with positive intentions without your judgment in mind, and then just see how it goes from there.
Yeah, I think for me it's not Afrobeats, but it's been cycling, and I've managed to make friends with reasonably senior people through cycling. But there's, you know, there's a huge range of gaming and football when we can go outside again, and all these things. And yeah, you just got to find the people that kind of click with that. And yeah, the virtual lunches, I think, is something I'm definitely going to try and pick up as a top tip. Frida, you mentioned imposter syndrome. So I think that probably hits everybody, where you think, I don't belong, I'm not qualified for this. You know, how did they recruit me by accident? Maybe not that one. But clearly that's something you felt, and you kind of mentioned it by name. How did you overcome that and get over that? Because I think that can be really crippling for people, and if you feel you don't belong and you've not got the authority or the empowerment to speak up in meetings, or, you know, putting your ideas across, you can be really limited. So how have you overcome that?
I think I overcame that by having one advocate in my workplace. My first ever placement in Rolls-Royce was really, really good, because I had this particular individual, and if they're listening, they'll know, where they literally took me under their wing and they guided me through. They told me, you know, this is Rolls-Royce, this is the culture, this is the workplace, this is how people are, this is how you do stuff. And being able to learn that at an early stage, that helped me with my career later on. And again, this person was from the African Caribbean Pioneers Network. So again, there's somebody that I can relate with, somebody that's been there, felt lonely, especially as a minority, and they've overcome that. You know, there's somebody that everybody loves, this individual. So being able to learn from them was a fantastic start. And again, having the Acpn around at Rolls-Royce, that was good, because it felt like you could be yourself. You could go for these catch-ups. You can relate with people. How are they feeling in their workplace? They might be feeling the same way you're feeling, but again, rather than talking to your colleagues about it, because they may not understand, talking to these individuals, they're like, oh yeah, I went through the same thing. So you're able to bounce ideas through. And again, invest in having a mentor as well. Like having an advocate in the company is very, very, very key, because it just makes you, you're not as lonely. You've got somebody to bounce ideas off. And yeah, you've got somebody that's cheering you on, being on your side. So that's an advice I would give people. Find yourself an advocate within the company.
I think that mentoring is really key, and there's a very formal kind of engineering mentoring structure that people can go through, but the more informal,
the more natural.
I think, yeah, someone that is very relatable. I think I can recognize that in someone I work with, and there's a lot of value in that. Sorry, Anesu, you can say.
No, I was just gonna definitely agree with what you both said about mentors. So I found my mentor. I think I went to a networking event. I don't even know how. Like first few weeks at Rolls-Royce, don't even know how I ended up going. And they just said a really funny joke, which was not funny, but I thought was hilarious. Everyone was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, that's so funny." And it's like, "Oh, you get that?" I was like, "Yes." And it was just really authentic, and it wasn't forced. And they're in project management as well, but I didn't know who they were, anything like that. And it just felt right. And every single time I felt imposter syndrome, or should I really be here? Am I doing something? I can just pick up the phone and call them, especially like lockdown, knowing that I lived alone. They were just there to be like, "Are you okay? How are you doing? How's life going?" Everything like that. So I do think if people are in that position where you have mentees or anything like that, definitely check up on them and just be open and honest, and yeah, definitely get a mentor. And yeah, it's almost like a therapist now, but definitely get a mentor. It's great.
Yeah. I agree with what both of them have said, particularly on the issue of, especially with imposter syndrome. I think sometimes when you walk into rooms and you're the only person that looks like you, you can build a lot of self-doubt around, should I be here? Why is no one else that looks like me around here? Which almost feeds into the importance of, having diversity within a workforce, because seeing people like you getting into these big places and these big rooms not only motivates you, but it pushes you to want to do the same thing. But apart from everything that they've said, which in terms of, coping with imposter syndrome, something else that I found that really works is reminding myself of when I had a big challenge and how I actually did overcome it. So if, it was a big project that I did a couple of months ago and my PDR, I got really positive feedback on that. It's almost just reminding myself when I am in self-doubt of, hey, 6 months ago, you had a really big challenging project and you were able to overcome that. Nothing's changed. And something else that helps me, a friend of mine said something that really struck with me recently. He told me that, we were talking, and he basically said, the world is run by ordinary people. And there's nothing wrong with being ordinary. I think people label ordinary as a bad term. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being ordinary. And I think sometimes we think you have to be this exceptional genius to get into these positions. But if you're being ordinary and being, diligent and hardworking and crossing the T's and dotting the I's, you're just as capable as everyone else. So yeah, just reminding yourself of that helps.
That self-affirmation thing. I think that can be really powerful when you haven't got your mentor on the phone. Just taking a step back and going, no, I've been here before. I've done equally challenging stuff, and I know I can do it. And that's really helpful. Helpful, definitely. Brilliantly. Well, we're coming to the end of our time, but we always leave this question to the end. And I'm definitely intrigued to see what you guys answer is. So, sometimes you're just having a bad day. You want some comfort food. What are you guys reaching for? Frida, you're chucking to yourself. What's your go-to? Some home baked cake?
It's worse. For me, it's like Chinese. It's like, when you're having a bad day, it's like Chinese food relates with that part of my brain. And then I go, okay, everything is fine. Don't worry. Just treat yourself. And that's not the best thing. To be honest, if it was baking, that would stress me out, because then I would have to buy the ingredients, where I'm like, I've got a Chinese that's 10 minutes away. They deliver within 20 minutes, all sorted. So that's my comfort food.
Good. What about you, Tendai?
I love food. So a lot of things were buzzing through my mind. I got distracted there for a second. Thinking about food. I think for me, a couple of things, but definitely eating an excessive amount of ice cream and like chocolate cake. I can get lost in a tub of ice cream and then regret it after. So definitely ice cream is my comfort food. Yeah.
Oh, well, you got your indoor bike to burn it off now.
That is true.
There is no evidence that he's used that bike. Just putting it out there. Zero evidence.
What about you, Anesu? What are you reaching for?
Cheese. Any type of cheese, anything. Put some grapes. I'm done.
Sounds good. Oh, I'm pretty hungry after that now. All good, brilliant. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. That's been it's been a lot of fun. It's been pretty informative. Hope that there's some, people can understand that pretty much we're all going through this. What people are feeling are normal. It's okay to feel like that, and hopefully there's some tips and tricks and how to build a robust coping mechanism. So thank you very much. We'll continue to grow the series, so please look out for more events coming up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
If
you.
you're interested in finding out more about Educator Global, then we'll put some links on the notes. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Cheers. Goodbye.